Hi folks, hope you're all well. This is going to be a quick video on sports injuries. There's two videos for sports injuries. In this one, we're going to look at the causes and then how to prevent sport injuries, the common prevention techniques. In the next video, we're going to look at rehab techniques. So you've got an injury, how do we get you back to full fitness in as short a time as possible? Because they're the areas covered in the AQA syllabus. Okay, just really quickly to start with, just to let you know, there are generally two classifications of sports injuries. They can either be acute or they can be chronic. Okay? Acute, the term that is often used is immediate onset. Now, what we mean by that is when you've got an acute injury, it's happened like that. When you've fallen, when you've landed awkwardly, when someone's come in and impacted on you. So an acute injury, there is an immediate onset. If I was to say to you as a physio, when did the injury take place? You could tell me. You could tell me the exact time it took place. With a chronic injury, these develop over time. Well, we're going to go on to some of them in a minute, some examples. But prime example of that is if I say to you, when did it occur? You'd go, well, I'm not quite sure. It's been getting worse for a while, actually. But, it's only recently got so bad that I've had to do something about it. So, common examples of acute injuries are things like fractures, dislocations, strains, which are injuries to muscle tendons, and I always use the T of strain to remind me of that, and sprains, which are injuries to ligaments. But then you've got things like, concussions. There are a whole raft of injuries that you could select from that are immediate. And by the way, when I say I pulled a muscle, just to remind you that is a strain. A tendon attached onto a muscle, so if you've pulled a muscle, that is a strain, so make sure you don't use that word pulled muscle. It's not really, that I wouldn't even say that's GCSE terminology. You want to be using the correct things now. Classic examples of chronic injuries are things like shin splints. I'm sure some of you out there have had shin splints. And again, they don't just come on suddenly, they come on over time. Things like stress fractures. Things like, sadly, as we get older, arthritis is going to be one. And you may have heard of more specific ones, such as Osgood-Schlatter's disease, which, you'll get if you're very much into like kicking sports and, you're in the puberty era of your life. What's happening there is the quadricep, you get, if you've had it, you've had a little lump on your tibia just underneath your patella, and it's a bony lump, and it's where the quadricep is getting so strong so quickly because you're doing a lot of kicking on that side, on that leg, that it's actually pulling the tendon off the bone a little bit, and it's pulling the bone out with it, and it gets very painful on that point. It doesn't happen immediately. Obviously, it happens over months and months, hence why it's a chronic injury. Okay, so there's some, they're the two classifications. What we're going to go on to now is, this is the last slide for this one. We're going to look at the causes of injuries, and you've got a couple of pictures here to help you out. This could be a 4 or 5 mark question. What are common causes of sports injuries? And as I'm sure you can work out by looking at that top picture there, the two American football players, one of the most common causes of injury in sport is impact. Now, that might be impact with an opponent. It might be impact with the ground. You fall, you put an arm down to break your fall, but then you end up breaking your wrist, or you end up dislocating your shoulder or something like that. But impact is a common cause of injury in sport. Other things that we've got that are common cause of injuries are things like, as we've led on to it, the playing surface itself. Okay? It could be frozen pitch. I know it's a nightmare when you've made the effort to get up for a morning fixture, you get there and the referee's called it off. But a frozen pitch has the same impact density as concrete. Now, you wouldn't go play a full competitive game of football or rugby on concrete because of the injuries that it causes. So it's out there to protect. But, waterlogged pitches, that frozen is just an example of that. What else have we got? Equipment can be a cause of injury. So, things like improper use. We've got to make sure we use things for the correct reason. or else we're going to get injured. Also, rules. If we break the rules, we're more likely to create injuries. Some rules are out there to make the game fair, so no team or player has an unfair advantage. But a lot of the rules out there to protect players. For example, rugby, you cannot take someone past the horizontal position in a tackle, otherwise you're dumping them on the head. That's not there for a fairness issue, that is there purely for safety. So if players break those rules, there is an increased chance that you are going to cause an injury to your opponent, but even to yourself as well. The one that I've got here, this is a picture of Freddie Flintoff, the cricketer. He's still playing a bit of cricket in the Australia Big Bash, but he's had to massive. He doesn't play, test match anymore or anything like that. And it's purely down to that thing. Oops, I'm just getting my pen. It's purely down to that thing there. That ankle. He's a big lad. 15 stone plus, and he runs in at a decent speed, and he bowls very, very quickly. And all of that force is going down that leg into the ankle, and has been for years and years. Thousands, tens of thousands of bowls he's done in training since he was a kid, all the way through to playing for England. That is a lot of strain going through that knee and that ankle joint in particular. So what do we call that? That is your classic RSI, or repetitive strain injury. When you are using the same body part over and over and over again, you are going to get repetitive strain. And that's where you're likely to get those things that we mentioned earlier, things like stress fractures. A stress fracture is not a fracture that occurs straight away. It occurs over time. I've seen x-rays of a stress fracture, and it's like when your windscreen gets hit by a stone and it shatters but stays in one place. If you look at a stress fractured bone, there are lots of tiny cracks running in all different directions all along that bone. So it's not one big fracture, it's just years and years of overuse of damaging that bone tissue. Okay, so that was cause of injury. What we're going to look at in the next video are ways that we can prevent, but also ways that we can rehab injuries. Okay, hope you've enjoyed it. Use this video as much as you need to.